Welcome everyone, it's Denise DiGrigoli with The Drive here on the HAN Network. I hope everyone had a fabulous Thanksgiving. Couple of new things as we go forward with The Drive. The Drive is how you fuel your mind, body, spirit, creates the lifestyle you live. It's an hour of motivational talk with a little humor. Hopefully you'll find something here that'll move you forward, get you unstuck, inspire you, and motivate you. So we're going to start off with a couple of tips. The one I like that's on my hot list is refresh your outlook this holiday season and take a few mindful minutes. There's a lot of talk about mindfulness, which is extremely important nowadays, to live in the moment. We're all sort of on the hamster wheel of overstressed and overscheduled. But if you take a moment and write out your to-do list, it unloads your mind and helps you take the edge off stress. Planning on paper always helps you make better decisions. I also like this cool app called Calm, C-A-L-M. Whether it's for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, it's got this great little pictorial with some soft music. There it is. You can see you can select 2, 5, or 10 minutes. It's free. It's absolutely fabulous. So take a few minutes in between your crazy holiday schedule, download something like this, do some deep breathing, and if you want to take it even further, I suggest maybe you get a copy of My Daily Drive, an agenda for your mind, body, spirit, and lifestyle. This helps you create a roadmap to so many goals and so many ambitions while staying relaxed and refreshed. You can find that on denisedigrigoli.com. My second tip is it's absolutely important, and we're just coming off the heels of Thanksgiving, to take time for family and really schedule in family breaks. Now we know it's challenging. Again, everyone is overscheduled, overstimulated, and the average family dinner time, they say, is about 20 minutes. But if you can carve out that time, studies show that children that actually have family dinner reduce their stress by, I don't know what the percentage, but they have better self-esteem and they have better sleep patterns. So take time this holiday season to really carve out some family time. Moving right along, we're talking about eating and family time. Something that's, I think, important for all of us that are parents that have young children in our lives is, I won't call it a hidden secret because I don't think it's a hidden secret anymore, but it's eating disorders. And they're prevalent in our society, probably more prevalent than we care to admit. And I have today a wonderful guest, a licensed clinician and a representative from the Renfrew Center, my friend Lisa Colvin. Welcome, Lisa. She is going to help us learn about the hidden signs and symptoms of eating disorders, as well as what we can do as caretakers and family members to help navigate through some what could be pretty scary times. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Denise.
Thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
So tell us a little bit about your background. I want everyone to understand what a licensed clinician in this focused area of life does.
Absolutely. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I currently work with the Renfrew Center, and we treat patients with eating disorders through a continuum of care. As far as my background in healthcare, I've worked for 15 years in the healthcare field. Prior to coming to Renfrew, I worked inpatient and outpatient in a behavioral health hospital in Fairfield County. And I have a tremendous amount of experience working with children, adolescents, and adults in treating various mental health issues. It's something that is, you talk about passion. You know, it is a passion for me, you know, to care for others and to help people to live a healthier life, you know, and the path that I chose to do that was through the mental health arena.
I think we're always, so many of us are striving for that goal of a happier, healthier life. And along with that comes so much in the media, as we know, and so much from our peer pressures. I really want to focus in on the children today that are, you know, under, say, 18, where it probably starts. Am I right? Does it start under, like, where does an eating disorder come from?
You know, it's interesting because foundational to all of the eating disorders, you know, whether it's bulimia or anorexia or binge eating disorder, you know, foundational to that is having a poor body image.
Ooh.
And body image is actually something that's formed at a very young age.
Right.
And the way that that's formed is through your interactions with your family, with your peers, and various life experiences that you're having at that time. What the good news is with body image is that some people, some young children develop a very positive body image,
Right.
whereas other children develop a negative body image.
So what's the difference? Because we see so many happy kids going into, elementary school, and they're, well dressed and seemingly happy. Where's the shift? Where's the yin? Where's the yang? Like why does one have great and not the other body image?
Well, what can happen, I think, with children is, other people may make comments about them related to how they look.
Oh, that's for sure.
Whether it's their weight, whether it's their size, whether it's their height, whether it's how they're dressed.
Yeah.
And what can happen to a child who, maybe, is having issues with body image is that can be very, very triggering,
Yes.
and can cause, a low body esteem. Which is tied intimately to low self-esteem.
So when we're on the daily drive, we often talk about this is a judgment-free zone. So my assumption is if these kids are making judgment calls on other children about their weight and what they're wearing, that flows from the leadership at home down. Would that be a correct assumption?
From the leadership down?
Meaning the parents.
The parents, it's really interesting because, at Renfrew we do a tremendous amount of work with the parents as well as with the patients, their children. And parents, I believe oftentimes have very good intentions
Right.
about things that they're saying to their children or communicating to their children. But sometimes things that parents and caretakers can say can often be triggering.
Like, give me an example.
Oh, it looks like you gained a little bit of weight.
Ooh,
Coming out of the doctor's
that
office.
feels bad to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it could be the flip of that. You look really, really good. It looks like you lost a little bit of weight since we had your last physical.
Yeah.
So really, when you think about complimenting your children, and if you're focusing, on numbers such as weight, okay, then the self-worth, the self-esteem of the child can be tied into that.
Directly connects to the weight.
Directly.
So what could I say then? Because maybe it is a positive thing that they lost a little weight. Maybe they were rolling towards, diabetes. What could a parent say that would be more helpful than that?
I think that as a parent, the focus should be on the health of your child, and not necessarily what the weight is. And that's always how you would want to start a conversation if you have a concern with your child regarding anything to do with their eating. Whether it's, that they may be losing a lot of weight, maybe they're very selective in their eating patterns, maybe you notice that there's a weight gain. But, rather than focusing on the number of the weight, really focus on the health of the child. Just and bringing them to the doctors, and the doctors, can be wonderful in, helping and working with you and your child, and coming up with a plan, that may address, how it is that they're eating and what are the eating patterns at home. You talk about, eating dinner as a family, eating lunch as a family, and, we think that is so important at the Renfrew Center.
Oh, so I picked the right tip and we didn't even talk about it.
I just love that tip because at the Renfrew Center we actually have parent groups and parent support groups with the patients, and they oftentimes come in and have a meal at the site with the patients as well.
Now, do you notice some dynamics there that maybe you want to address or help when you see them all having family dinner?
Absolutely.
Like, why are you having that second slice of bread? Do you need that much butter?
Right. It's amazing when you bring a family in together and you actually sit and you can eat with them or watch them eat. It's amazing the communication that just unfolds. And parents, I often find that they're very willing and they're very open to ideas and suggestions from a licensed clinician or a nutritionist, just to help them understand maybe how to rephrase things they're saying or again, focus on the health.
I remember when Ava was a baby, we used to make her broccoli into faces, with the nose being the tomato and the whatever, and say, I bet you can't eat the eyes. I bet you can't eat the lips. And she would find it fun, to eat her vegetables. That was a little game we played. Boy, now in middle school, everything is ew. So how do you get through something like that? Because I say to her all the time, when you were little, you even ate fish. Now, no. And so I talk about health all the time. I mean, we have some body images too, because no matter what we say as parents, you can be the best parent, but media tells you need to be slim, you need to look like that girl, and if you don't have that thing, you're not good enough. And even though you reinforce I am enough, I am. Whatever you say after I am, you are, right? So that's a mantra in our home, but I still fight that tide. So what suggestions would you give to someone like me?
Well, I have to tell you that, having a poor body image, development of an eating disorder, there's several factors that weigh in, and one of them certainly is the social factor and our exposure to social media. Because if you look at the covers of magazines, and I think one of the things that we understand as adults is that many of those photos may be photoshopped.
Right.
Okay.
All
when
of them.
you are a 5, 6, 7-year-old young girl and you're in the supermarket and you're waiting online with mom, and you look at the cover of a magazine with a beautiful model on it who's perfectly photoshopped, you don't know that that's photoshopping.
Right.
Right. So perhaps I should really look like that. My skin should look like that. My hair should look like that.
Right.
My lips should be just that color with the right makeup. So one of the things that I do, because I give a lot of presentations, on body image throughout the state, and one of the things I always like to do is show a video clip, of a model going into a model shoot. And what she really looks like at the beginning of the shoot, and then they kind of go into hyperspeed. They have the people putting makeup on,
The time-lapse
hair.
video.
Then they show the photoshopping that takes place, and you see the final image at the end, and the person doesn't look anything like the model.
You will have to share that with me, and I will put it on my social media so that the people that are watching this show can actually see that, because that's a wonderful suggestion. Now, I read recently Kate Winslet, and her advertising is not allowing anyone to airbrush her. She's going, and of course, so I've been looking out to see if, in fact, I believe that or not. Because body image is so tagged into society and social media. I mean, questions like, the question I heard the other day is, what side do you like better? I said, all sides. What are you talking about? What side do I like better? And, you know, we were discussing it at our Thanksgiving table. I said, we have a positive motivation show. What side do I like better? I mean, of course I like all sides. And so I think your job is challenging. I know mine is. And I only have one person I'm working with. I don't know about you. So tell me about the Renfree Center. What type of client goes there? Do they know to go there? Do you have to find them? Is it through, media conversations like this that they become aware?
People actually come to us as patients through various venues. Oftentimes the pediatrician or the doctor actually will make the referral for the patient to come in for an assessment. On our website, we actually have a live chat. So if you go to www.renfreecenter.com, there's actually a component there where you can ask some questions and you can interact with a real person to get further information. People certainly call our 1-800 number to set up an assessment. And sometimes, it's really interesting, people find out about the Renfrew Center through somebody else who maybe has a family member who already had an eating disorder and who actually came to us for treatment. So, there's still the power of the word of mouth.
Thank heavens.
Yeah, which is wonderful.
So do you find that if this was prevalent in a family, it kind of perpetuates itself?
That's a great question. Studies have shown that if you have a family member or a blood relative who has an eating disorder, you're 12 times more at risk of the development of an eating disorder.
So is it chromosomal? Is it genetic? Is it environmental, in your opinion?
All of the above.
All of the
All
above.
of the above. Eating disorders, if you look at the development of an eating disorder, it's complicated, but there's factors that weigh into that. There's a genetic factor, obviously. There's the, the temperament, of the child. Okay, and kind of looking at that, is it a child who is perfectionistic? Is it a child with impulsive behaviors? Is it, so that's another element. Certainly look at the social factor, which I just talked about with the media and the influence of that. And also the environment that the child grows up in, the family, okay, experience with peers, general life experience.
So with these 4 or 5 factors you just mentioned, is it sort of like it's laying dormant and it clicks on because of an event, or is it all of those kind of mulling around together? Because I really want our listeners our viewers to see. The idea of the show is to kind of see if there's any signs or symptoms floating around. I recently had a friend who, had no knowledge that her child was going through something until they just hit the wall. and then it became an emergency situation. And so it was sort of coincidental when you and I connected. It was a serendipitous opportunity for me to, because I think in middle school especially, we all struggle with helping our kids. And I know it happens much younger, but I feel like middle school has just reared some ugly heads with these kind of things. So give me the signs and symptoms. If I'm, a parent or a caregiver, what do I see in a child that's starting to experience some of this type of eating disorder stress?
Okay, some of the things that I would look for as a parent is, first of all, if a child starts talking negatively about themselves or a part of themselves, like, I don't like my elbows, right? I don't like my hips, right? My face is ugly, right? When you start to hear that negative self-talk, okay, it really kind of points to, this child doesn't feel good about how they look, and they're saying that they don't like parts of themselves, but what they're really saying is they don't like themselves. And again, low body esteem is very closely linked to low self-esteem. So that would be a huge red flag for me as a parent when I started to hear that sort of negative self-talk.
Okay, so I'll be honest, I hear a little of that. And I've also read on it that sometimes it's peer pressure, it's a fad, it's a trend. It may not be something to throw up and sort of put all of your energy on as a symptom. Do you agree with that?
It's usually several things that really come together that point clearly to an eating disorder. I mean, I think that you're right. I think that many, there are probably many children out there who are experiencing or they're saying things about themselves that are not very positive.
Right.
And I think that's where parents can really step in and, maybe help to redirect the conversation of where it's going and maybe complimenting the child, not so much about their appearance and, but really, what, I really like how you handled, that conversation that you had with your best friend. I thought that you did a very good job asserting yourself. So I think parents, if parents can really think about, what are the ways that I can compliment my wonderful child?
Right.
So that we can maybe redirect it from, what it is that they're saying about their bodies and what they hate. However, you should always pay attention to that as a parent. And, maybe also add into the conversation all the great things you can do with your body. When I go into high schools, I actually work with high school students. And one of the things I do like a little body image activity with balloons. Okay, and I do this at high schools all the time. I have everybody stand up, they blow a balloon, and I have everybody start playing with their balloon. Yeah. And then I have people start hitting the balloon back and forth to each other, and they make a little game of it, and we count how many times we can do it. And it's really, learning how to experience and live in your body and have pleasure. Your body is not just about, really like how it looks. Like your body is so functional. You can do so many great things with your body.
I love that point.
Yeah,
I love that point.
Pick up your little sister and hug her. Let's talk about that and focus on that a little bit more.
Wash the dog, right? The wiggly dog. That's what we were doing the other night. We do actually talk about that kind of stuff and how things are handled, and more about what you can do with yourself in general. And, we talk about random acts of kindness all the time and being in service to others. And so we kind of take the light of us. But what I find is social media. And, I get in trouble because I follow whatever Instagram stuff she's doing. And of course she doesn't like that because it's a privacy issue. But at the same time, I see some of the friends talking so negatively about themselves. And so I see it's like monkey see, monkey do. Well, in order to fit in, I've got to do that too. I said, no, that's not true at all.
I think it's challenging for tweenies and adolescents because developmentally, your peers are everything, really, and what they say really goes. Sometimes even more so than your parents.
Absolutely.
One of the, when you really look at, what could be a trigger.
Yeah.
What could be a trigger to the development of a full-blown eating disorder, and it's coming? I mean, one of the things that we look at is there a history of being bullied or teased, by other kids,
You can tell this subject is close to my heart. It really is. I see so many kids in middle school struggling with this kind of stuff. And we are being signaled to take a quick break here. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk about trigger points. Because I think our audience really needs to understand that. And stress at the holiday time can just compound that. So my guest and friend Lisa Colvin from the Renfrew Center in Greenwich will be back in just about a minute. Thanks, everyone.
Darien Sport Shop is a unique store because it's a family store. A busy mom can come in with kids in tow and find everything she needs for them, and even find a dress for herself for Saturday night. And if she's in a rush, she can simply go home and order it from us that night. We'll deliver it the next day. The Darien Sport Shop. We're pretty on the outside and amazing on the inside. Conveniently located with free and easy parking at 1127 Post Road, Darien, Connecticut. Or shop us online at dariensport.com.
It's time to come back to hometown banking, where people are taken into account, not just balances, where community comes first, a place where there's more than one kind of interest, where automation will never replace consideration, where they not only know your name, they know your dog's name too. It's time to expect more. It's time to bank well. Bank smart. Bank local. Bank well.
Back to school means back to busy, and Stewart's Market can save you precious time by stocking all of your favorite essentials under one roof. For a healthy start to school, we have all the ingredients. Walter Stewart's, your family-owned fresh local market, 229 Elm Street and at stewartsmarket.com.
When you experience a sports injury, you want to get better and fast. Coastal Ortho Express gives you direct access to orthopedic care quickly. Their physicians are fellowship trained in sports medicine at world-class universities and are also team doctors for area football teams. For specialized personal care of sports injuries, go to Coastal Ortho Express, open Monday through Saturday in the iPark building, 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk, or coastalorthoexpress.com. Coastal Orthopedics, keeping you on the move.
Tired of all the bull? Relax and enjoy the experience of buying a car at Panby Chrysler Jeep Dodge and Ram. No bull allowed.
I'm Kate Chaplinsky. Join us for Coffee Break weekdays at 11 to get the latest Connecticut news, weather, high school sports, and more. News doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break on the HAN network. I'm Kate.
We're back. It's Denise DiGrigoli with The Drive, and we're talking with Lisa Colvin, a licensed clinician and representative at the Renfrew Center, about eating disorders. And we're really focusing in today on our adolescents and what triggers those types of eating disorders and the signs and symptoms as parents and caregivers, which is such a critical, I think it's a critical topic, and I think it's important to touch on it here during the holiday season when we're all so stressed. So as parents running around and working or preparing for holidays, and everybody feeling the stress rolling down the family. So we just left the last segment on the heels of, tell me about what triggers this in young people.
Right. And one of the things I had mentioned was, certainly a history of being bullied or teased. That could be a possible trigger. Okay, to certainly poor body image and ultimately developing an eating disorder. But I think, according to the National Eating Disorder Association, the number one, the big thing to really watch out for as a parent is, do you have a child who is dieting? And when I say the word diet, I mean diet to lose weight.
Oh.
Okay. One of the most valuable things I've ever learned is, there's many diets that people follow, and a diet is a recommended way of eating. So if you have an issue with your heart, you would follow a recommended diet. If you're diabetic, there is a recommended diet you would follow. But I think culturally, we've taken the word diet and it means to lose weight. We just sort of add that in automatically. So I want to be very clear. If you have a child, okay, who is dieting with the goal of losing weight, okay, that
Ex-nay.
Yeah, that is something really to watch for. One of the things that
I just, let's stop there for a second.
Yeah.
What I love that you said was, dieting is a recommended way of eating. And you're right. So many of us think of diet as, I'm on a diet to lose weight. I've got to lose weight for my wedding, for this party, for this event, or whatever. reason. And so it's become very accepted when it really is a recommended mode of eating for a particular health issue.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. That actually helps me retrain my brain in that short statement. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry to kind of segue us there. So if the child is dieting to lose weight, now what? What if the parent's encouraging that? Sounds scary to me.
Well, when you look at an eating disorder, with a child within a family system, it's a family illness. This is not just the child who's going through the eating disorder. It's always the family. And that's why at the Renfrew Center, we always involve the family, and we have multifamily groups, and we have family weekends at our residential centers, because they're a very important piece of it.
I think that's very important to highlight, that it's a family issue. It's not just an individual issue.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too, with an eating disorder, that we expect that there's denial around the illness. And sometimes the parents can be in denial too. They may not quite see it. It could be that they actually go in and they bring their child in for a physical, and it could be the doctor that suddenly notices that there's been a significant weight loss within the past 3 months or over the past year since they last saw them, plus they're growing taller, like really what's going on here? So sometimes, the parents, again, I want to kind of go back to that parents, I think, often have very good intentions.
Right.
But they may not actually see, the eating disorder developing right in front of them. So sometimes it is really other people from outside the family systems that can kind of point to this and say, like, we're very concerned about your child.
Right.
So thank goodness.
Right.
And part of what I do is I do a lot of education with school professionals so that, because they see the students every day, and maybe things for them to look out for so they can work with the family.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So if we've identified there is a problem, what now the next phase sounds to me like it's denial, at least a little bit, whether it be from the child or the family or a little bit of both. So how do we move through that? How do we move through that?
That's a great question. If we have a family, with a child coming in for an assessment, we do a very, we ask very, very detailed questions. We actually have a psychiatrist who reviews blood work and lab tests, and we come up with a recommendation for the family and for the patient that's coming in.
What are they reviewing in the blood work? What are they looking for? Deficiencies in something?
Yeah, there's actually a multitude of tests that are actually run on the blood work that's always reviewed. And we usually request that is all sent to us, if not before the assessment, actually before the patient starts, because we need to know if we can medically hold the patient in an outpatient level of care, or if it's more significant and we need to send them to a higher level of care, which we call a residential, and we have 24/7 nursing.
Right,
Okay.
got it. So there's different levels of seriousness in this type of eating disorder.
Absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes, when patients come in for an assessment, they may only need to have one-on-one treatment with a therapist who specializes in eating disorders. But the thing of it is that you want to get the adolescent and the family, in for an assessment with someone. That is important. And sometimes it might take a while.
So are there family structures that point to a certain type of eating disorder, for example, anorexia, bulimia, or binge eating? So is there a profile of, this sort of mode of operandi leads to anorexia? And I want to know about the 3 different types of eating disorders, or the major ones. So we all
Sure.
think that anorexia is starving ourselves. Is that true?
Anorexia, actually, whenever I see the word anorexia or nervosa, I think restriction. Okay, this is a person who is restricting their caloric intake. Okay, and really you want to look at, is the person within normal weight limits, or are they dropping below that? So a person with anorexia, typically, is thin and getting thinner. Right? And that's why, it's so important for us to look at blood work, to look at labs, to look at tests, because, their health can be seriously compromised if they've been restricting for a long period of time. Another thing with anorexia too, and I talked a little bit about this before, but it's somebody who is so tied into her, her self-worth. Everything about how she values herself is how her body looks. Really believing that she's fat.
Even when she's super thin in the mirror.
Even when she's thin, and that's that body image.
That's a distortion.
It's a distortion that's taking place. because you could look at someone and say that they're underweight, but that person can look at themselves in the mirror and they feel that they're still fat. So that's that body image component that I was talking about. And they still believe that they need to lose weight, even when it's very clear that they're very thin and that they're underweight.
Yeah.
Another thing that can happen too is, thinning hair or loss of hair. That would be something else certainly as a parent, that you might see as well. So, and also too, someone with anorexia, in order to burn more calories, in addition to restriction, they may be over-exercising, even when they're injured or they're really, really tired.
Yeah, I've heard of that before.
Yeah, and also changes, I think, in academic performance, may start to occur, like just with their functioning in general. Because when you think about it, if you're nutrient deficient, how can you perform
Your
as
brain
well?
can't function.
Think about sports, that children might be involved in. Think about, being in a play and having to memorize lines. Your body needs nutrients in order to perform, even as a child.
So tell me about bulimia then. Like, what are the signs of that? That scares me too.
Bulimia.
Isn't that where the acid from the, I don't want to say vomit, affects your teeth, and it's got a litany of
periodontal erosion? Absolutely, absolutely. That can be one of the definitely one of the medical complications of bulimia. But bulimia, there's a binge episode and then there's a purge episode. And a binge
they go hand in hand. Binge, purge.
Yeah, a binge and a purge, which takes place.
Yeah.
Okay. And the binging, when you think about binging, what is a binge? And a binge is really, eating within a very discrete period of time, eating an amount of food that a person without binge eating disorder or without bulimia would be eating. So say if I had bulimia, within a short period of time, say 2 hours, I could consume a tremendous amount of food. Whereas you, without bulimia, within that 2 hour period of time, would eat much less.
Right.
Okay. So I'm eating. I'm out of control.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
All right, because I'm overeating.
Right.
And then there's a purge episode which takes place with that. And
Right.
and it's an inappropriate compensatory symptom in order to lose the weight. And people often think with bulimia of vomiting, but it also could be laxative use, diuretics, fasting, fasting episodes, and over-exercising, in order to purge the extra calories. So, there's many different symptoms of that.
What is the youngest age of a person that you've treated with this kind of thing?
Well, at the Renfrew Center, we treat females age 14 and up. Okay, that doesn't mean that bulimia cannot start before that age. So I just speaking from our experience, we treat at age 14. But if you talk to families and you talk to the adolescents, you may find that they've been using these symptoms for a period of time.
Wow.
Even if they come into us at age 14. So it could definitely happen before.
And then I know this is going to be a very general question, but I still want to get it out there. What is the length of treatment? Does it depend on how long they've had it? Do they go through treatment, and what's the rate of relapse? I mean, it reminds me of almost like a drug addiction to some degree, where you go for help, you return, hopefully not, but most do. Like, tell me about that.
One of the things to remember about, eating disorders and the symptoms, of that, whether it's restriction or overeating or purging, is that these symptoms are helping this adolescent or adult in some way to cope with something else in their life that's not okay.
Interesting.
Food is just the symptom, and their relationship with food is a symptom of something else that's really going on. And that's the beauty. That's part of the beauty of the work that we do at Renfrew, is really getting to what else is
What's
going
on.
That they're turning to food, and they've developed this very unhealthy relationship with food that can cause such serious emotional, mental, and physical health complications.
It just sounds crazy to me, but it isn't crazy. So it starts off maybe with the underpinnings of a bad self-image, combined with something that triggers it, and then exasperated by the fact that this has come out because they're dealing with something else. Do I have that right? Does that sound right?
It's that could be a simple way of looking at it, but I always go back to, an eating disorder is complicated, because why is it that one child, who maybe has a poor body image, doesn't develop a full-blown eating disorder. Maybe they have some disordered thinking about food, but they don't meet those clinical levels of an eating disorder, but yet somebody else does.
Yeah, well, so what is the difference?
Well, that's where, I'm using my therapist self, that's where the assessment is just so important.
Right.
And really understanding, like a history of this person. What are their internal thoughts? When did they start using their behaviors? What do they think, may have contributed to, their first binge purge episode? Talk to the patient, talk to the person who's right in front of you. Every patient has their own story.
Right.
About what brought them to where they are, that they're sitting in front of you and they're finally in a position where they want help.
So I would guess that in this sort of finding out phase, if you're a parent, there are things you should say. I hate the word should, because I say on the show we never should on ourselves. But there's probably things that, I know, and I get in trouble for saying that, but I still say it. Anyways, there are probably things we should really consider saying as we started and not saying if we have some thoughts that this might be going on for our child or the child that we might be caregiving to.
Yes.
So give our audience some tips on what they should consider saying if they have any thoughts that this might be a problem.
Okay. First of all, when you approach your family member, whether it's your daughter, your son, a sister, whoever it is, to be very kind, to be very respectful, and to be very understanding, as they're, as you're talking with them and as they're answering you. So that's first and foremost. And I think, always, letting the person know how much you care about them. And that's the reason why you're approaching them, because you're noticing maybe that their mood has changed, because again, we don't want to make it focus so much on weight and a number, but letting them know that you're noticing a change. Perhaps it's their academic performance. Perhaps you notice, that maybe their health, they're not, there's a different energy, maybe to talk about that, and is there something wrong? And what is it that I can do to help?
I'm being signaled that we need to take yet another break. We know we're having fun because these breaks are just coming right up on us.
That's true.
And we're going to come back and we're going to talk about more of what we can say and what we can do and what we as outsiders just looking in also could be wise to say or not say. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes, friends. Denise with the Daily Drive. Thanks for tuning in.
Find over 1,000 special stories at Hospital for Special Surgery. Go to hss.edu/backinthegame.
I was jogging 5 months after my cartilage tear.
Skiing a year after hip surgery.
And playing grandma 4 weeks after hip replacement.
One special hospital, 1,000 special stories. See Connecticut patients at hss.edu/CT.
In Pound Ridge since 1993, the Wine Connection is one of America's best wine shops. Visit our beautiful store for the greatest in wine and knowledgeable service. With wonderful values from around the world to collectibles for your cellar, we are your one-stop source. Visit our online shop at wineconn.com and make sure to sign up for email updates. With great offers, new arrivals, and special events, don't miss all the action at The Wine Connection, including tastings every weekend. The Wine Connection, located at 32 Westchester Avenue, Pound Ridge, New York. Healthy, confident smiles begin at Stratford Orthodontics. Conveniently located on Main Street, we are Stratford's hometown orthodontist. We offer the latest in orthodontic technology, including Damon braces and Invisalign. We always accept new patients. Call today to schedule a complimentary consultation. 203-375-8332. Stratford Orthodontics, 2499 Main Street, Stratford. 203-375-8332. And online at stratfordsmile.com.
The fall bite is heating up, Albies, bonita, blackfish, alligator blues, and stripers are following the large schools of bait in the Long Island Sound. This is the time to visit the New England coast, and the Dock Shop can get you outfitted with the latest fishing gear, jackets, hats, gloves, and fleece. Boater, beach bum, fishermen simply love the New England coast. This is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, now in 2 locations, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, or on the web, dockshop.com. The Fall Bite.
Welcome back. It's The Drive with Denise DiGrigoli, and we're talking about eating disorders and the signs and symptoms and what we may not be aware of as parents and caregivers. And my good friend Lisa Colvin, who's a licensed clinician and a representative at the Renfrew Center, is in, and we're just having an incredible conversation, and we're missing all the breaks because we just want to keep talking. And our producer Kate brought up a really great point that I'll take ownership on. You know, I was mentioning that this summer I tore my Achilles tendon and I was out, you know, not able to exercise, and I gained a few pounds, and I was using my scooter, and, you know, it was just a drag. And I gained a few pounds, and, you know, they've been stubborn, and I, all through Thanksgiving, was complaining that I couldn't lose this weight. And even though I've been doing whatever I can to, I was not talking very kindly about myself. And my husband Troy said, well, wait a minute, if you want Ava to have a positive body image, how can you? And we were just saying, it seems like we talk about it amongst our friends, you know, in our age group, it's okay to say, oh, I'm fat, or I'm this, or I'm that, but it really isn't, because it trickles down. And it's also putting that own sort of karmic energy in our own energy field, right?
Absolutely.
Because we're putting that around us. So talk about that a little bit, and talk about that. Like, what do you see that when you're talking about dealing with family systems?
Absolutely.
And what can we do as women to kind of curb that?
Well, I have to tell you that as parents, you know, one of the things that you always want to do, you know, especially if you feel that there's something with your child with an eating disorder or negative body image, is really examine your own beliefs.
That's
hard. About your own body, you know, and about dieting. You know, because you have to remember that children are watching everything that their parents do. You know, they will notice, if you're sitting at a dinner table, they will notice how much food mom is putting on the plate. You know, does mom finish her food? Okay. Does mom avoid certain foods? Okay. Is dad overeating? You know, children learn how to eat from their parents. Oftentimes.
They learn everything, right?
Right. And you never know, you know, how what you're saying or what you're doing, you know, when your child is around, they will see that.
Right.
Okay? And they will internalize it, and they will incorporate that into their own belief system.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, you know, being careful, you know, about what you say, you know, and being very mindful. You talk about mindfulness. As a parent, you can practice mindfulness in parenting. Okay, as far as what it is that you're saying to your children, and, you know, talking about food, you know, how is it that you're eating around them? You know, are you dieting? You know, are you encouraging your child to diet?
It's funny, I have somebody that I work with in training, and he said to me the other day, stop trying all these different things. Just stick to being mindful of what you're eating. You know, in other words, don't restrict this, don't restrict that, but be mindful and stop, because I was moving towards that dieting too, you know, to get rid of these so-called 6 pounds that were really, and for some reason, bothering me more so than any other time in my life. And it was like, it was very interesting that, I don't know if it was the stress of the event, but it was like these 6 pounds could have been 600. And I liked what Kate said too. It's not only those of us that have children, but it's also our friends, our family members, our caregivers that have no children. Be mindful of what you're saying around young people, because your message matters too, right?
Yeah. Yes, and again, I point to, you know, children are very aware, they're very smart, and they see everything and they hear everything.
And then you don't know, like, if and certain members in our family are more revered than others, right? So I want to be like Auntie Jan. Well, Auntie Jan's like the perpetual yo-yo dieter. She's not, you know, perhaps the best one you want to be like. And so we kind of make a little joke. Well, she's over the top with that kind of stuff. Where, that's not really something that we're interested in because it's not really healthy for her. So you've got to kind of steer those conversations too without disparaging a family member. Now, we don't necessarily want to be like her, and so that's interesting to me. What are the other few tips that we can say amongst our circles, amongst ourselves in supporting women within our own groups? And I guess that would lead me to the next question. Do people at an older age just get this? Can you just fly into this?
That's a great question, because we treat eating disorders from age 14 through the lifetime.
Really?
So we actually see, where women come into treatment that are mature women with an eating disorder. They may have had a history of an eating disorder from a young age, and were in recovery and doing very well, and then something happened to cause a relapse of some kind, where they started using their symptoms again, and they come in as an older patient. So this is something that we always need to be aware of. How we talk about our bodies. What is our relationship with food, and are we, do we have a healthy relationship with food, or has it become unhealthy again? So it's something to be mindful of, as we live our lives. But absolutely, we have tracks of treatment. We have an adolescent track of treatment. We have a mature woman track of treatment at the Renfrew Center. And the other thing that I just want to also mention is that many of the patients who we see at Renfrew who do have a diagnosed eating disorder, there's also a comorbidity, meaning that there's another mental health issue that they might have, such as substance abuse, such as anxiety, such as depression. And we actually have customized tracks for those patients as well.
So it's really a multi-faceted, multi-tentacle type of organization that can help, but it's also a multifaceted issue, eating disorder. It's not any clear cut, you've got a cut in the head, we're going to stitch it and you'll be fine.
That's where I kind of go back to when assessment is being done. Every person has such a unique story, and I think that's what our job is as Renfrew clinicians and staff, is to really work to understand our patient, understand the family, and develop a treatment plan with them, so that they can begin their recovery.
So in the Daily Drive book that I have, which is a journaling process, I talk about writing things down, and there's some guided writing prompts in there. And being an artist or of an artist background, I believe it's very important to write things down and use markers and get creative with yourself. Although I love technology, I always start with I am. So whatever you finish that sentence with, you are. So if you say I am fat, then you're putting that out there. If you say I am healthy, then you're putting that out there. If you say I am going to do it, as opposed to I'm going to try. So it's a little bit about steering your energy to the results you want. So let's talk about mindfulness based on that. What do you do to help your patients or the people that you see become mindful? And what do you do yourself to keep yourself mindful?
Well, one of the things I can tell you with our patients, we actually have mindfulness groups, as part of the programming at the Renfrew Center, where we may do some guided meditations and, visualizations, to help the person.
So some creativity is involved there.
Oh, very much so. One of the things that we're known for at the Renfrew Center is our experiential therapies, whether it's through art, drama, and mindfulness groups.
Okay.
So that's something that we fully embrace.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. The other thing too that I want to talk about is the meal itself. Because when young women and women come into treatment at Renfrew, they're having meals with us. That's being supervised by a therapist and a clinician. That is in the room with them as they're having the meal. And I think that that's really the core of the treatment that we provide, because it's really in those meals, and then having the group immediately following, where we talk about what our experience was in having the meal, that we can help women develop a healthy relationship with food in the moment, right? If you think about it, if you have someone cueing you, if you have, say, 30 minutes to eat, if you had somebody cueing you at the 15-minute mark and saying, okay, you should be about halfway done now, so everybody looks down at their plate. Now, somebody in early recovery from anorexia may not be anywhere near halfway done with the food on their plate. They may be eating more slowly. They're cutting up their food into very small bites, and they're eating very mechanically, right? Whereas somebody with bulimia or a binge eating disorder might be more than halfway done. So it helps with pacing. You know, so we really can help to teach some of those skills of eating.
So that's very mindful.
It's
It
extremely
reminds me of when
mindful.
we grew up as a kid in the Berkshires, you farmed your vegetables. So there was a different attachment to the food because you grew them. And then you also said some sort of a prayer before you began, you know, thank you for this meal. So there was a whole lot of mindfulness there because you talked about, well, that lettuce grew and that tomato didn't, and then you said your prayer, and it was that family time. And I think, too, in today's contemporary society, of course, there's, thank God, there's a new movement to farm to table, and we're much more, you know, into our local farming, which is a fabulous thing. But we are so crazy busy, oftentimes we're running on the fly and grabbing that box of fish sticks from Trader Joe's. And so it's interesting you say the pacing, because you know, growing up, that was very natural for us. You just paced. And then, you know, on a Sunday, you took a walk around the block with everyone after dinner.
Yeah.
So as much as I want to incorporate that back into my life, that's probably not anywhere near. But it just brings to mind mindfulness of things that have gone by. So we now need to find new ways to do that outside of, in your case, recovery. Like, I think I brainstorm that right off the top of my head, and I say, you know, what can we do? Have maybe kids make meals with us, have them shop with us, and just be more selective in how we prepare our foods. We were on a track to make a new recipe every week. That was my goal. Now we do one a month. We never made it every week, but we're one a month where we pick it out and we shop it in. And so that's kind of my solution.
So you make it a family event.
non-clinical solution. Yes.
I love it. I love it because you're creating a family event with your daughter. Okay, is your husband involved too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a family event in order to plan a new meal that you've never prepared before, and all of you participate in actually.
Well, some of us more than others, depending on what's going on. But yes, and it's almost like we're like in a tester. Like, what do we think of this one versus the other one? One of my favorites is a spicy coleslaw shrimp taco, which none of us would normally eat. Like, we're not coleslaw people.
Okay.
But we ventured down that road. I am getting a little twist from the side that we need to sort of wrap up. I want to hear about your upcoming gala.
Yes.
If you could share that information, please,
Absolutely.
so that they can put it up for us. Your gala is when, the 5th?
It's actually this Saturday, December 5th, from 7 to 10 at the Westport Inn. And I'm actually the gala chair for an organization called the International Association of Eating Disorder Professionals. We have a very active Connecticut chapter, and this is actually our major fundraiser for the year. And I'm going to say it stands, if you take all of what I just said, we're called IDEP. IDEP Connecticut chapter.
IDEP.
This is our major fundraiser, and the money that's raised actually helps with the education of professionals who treat eating disorders within Connecticut. Also, that we can do things like go into schools and do more education around schools and helping school professionals understand eating disorder signs and symptoms.
I'm going to keep that in mind.
Yeah. IDEP's a wonderful organization. If you go to idepct.com, you can actually register for the gala. We actually have a fashion show, I just want to mention, that's part of the gala. And we actually have models who are in recovery who will be modeling clothes by our local fashion designer.
Very worthy event. Okay.
Yes.
And the Renfree Center, what is their website?
www.renfrewcenter.com.
And do you have a website or a way of people getting in touch with you?
If people want to reach me with any questions or comments, it's lcolvin, C-O-L-V-I-N, at renfrewcenter.com.
Okay. Well, it has been, we could go on and on for hours, it feels like, but I think we kind of touch the tip of it. Maybe you'll rejoin me in the spring and come back and we can continue our dialogue. In the meantime, friends, it's Denise with the Daily Drive, Tuesdays live here on HAN Network. A little motivation to move your mind, body, spirit, and lifestyle forward. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you so very much.